I appreciate that you all help me with the support. But also, you may not be aware of this. There is a group that sends money to me, and we together support a preacher in South America. And some of you are part of that group. So appreciate your efforts in every way. I appreciate you being here today. And by that, I do not mean coming to this building to listen to me. I appreciate so much that there's a light in this community. It's a dark world that we're living in nowadays, and the Bible tells us that the church is the pillar of the faith. We're the ones that hold up the Word of God so that the community can know and can have a place to go to look for the light. And so you're doing that in this community. You're doing it for people that are dear friends of mine. And you're doing it for people in South America that are dear friends of mine also. So we better get to it. We don't have a lot of time. It took me an hour to do this in Anderson, so I'll do my best. I think I just turned that off. There we go. This was my 7th trip, I believe, to South America. I've been able to go to Colombia, Peru, and Brazil, all three. Preached in all 3 countries. And we just sang that servant song. Do you think about what you're saying? That's a scary song to sing to me. But it's amazing to me what the Lord can do with people that don't seem to be the right people. You know what I mean? There are things accomplished, and I just can say with confidence, in this place, there are amazing things being done by people in this group, and you don't even know they're doing them. There are things we can all do to serve, so that just comes to my mind all the time. I was able to go this time, and last year also, with my grandson. My grandson, Nolan, is a freshman at Florida College this year, so he got to go as a senior in high school also. He was only able to go for 1 week this time and then had to return to Florida College. People drove me nuts asking me where he was. I think I could have stayed home this year and just sent them. They'd all have been perfectly happy. But we went to, in our first area of work, we went to the area of Belém. This is the preacher that some of you helped support. His name is Albert Martinez. That's him there with Nolan in the front yard of his house where he lives. Albert is an amazing young man, he is a young man to me. He preaches he previously preached in 3 villages that were within a half hour, 45 minutes of each other, and now he was able to acquire a property in the center of all of that where he built a room on the side of his house for the church to worship in, and now the people don't have to travel so far, and he's continually going out further and further. That's the 2nd motorcycle that the church in Anderson has bought him. He wears them out. He goes out to villages in places where you just would not believe, often just on a path. That's his son, Andres. Andres and my grandson have become good friends. They run around together when we're down there and go and talk to people. Both good students of the Bible, both college students. And the other picture is the stove in the backyard where they make a wooden table and build a fire on top of it. And that's where they cook our dinner out there. That's the room that they meet in on the side of that building. They have a good group there, about 30 people probably on a Sunday morning. He's also been going to a little town nearby called Caracas. It's a little tiny village on a small river. He originally just met on the riverbank. Once a week, he advertised that he would have a Bible study out there and got quite a group of people coming and listening, and has baptized several people now out on that riverbank. The couple that Nolan is standing there with were some of the first ones baptized, and they actually made a shelter on the back of their house for the Bible study group to meet in once a week. So they all meet out there and study the Bible, and it's just an exciting place to visit. There were 2 people in this area that wanted to be baptized on this particular Sunday that we were there at the end of our time there. The river was dry, though, and so they said in the evening we would all go to Montelibano, which was a couple hours away. It's a town that I used to go to regularly. Last year they wouldn't let us go there. They said it was too dangerous. The political climate is changing down there. But we went in this time. We met in the preacher's living room there and had a Bible study to make sure they were understanding what they were getting into with being baptized. So we had a study on that. A couple other people were with us, and then we went out to the river to baptize them. We got out in the river, had just finished baptizing. They started hollering from the bank, "There's one more, there's one more." So there was a lady in that study group that had been baptized when she was younger and had realized during that study that probably her baptism was not correct. And so she came down and joined us in the river, and we got to baptize 3 people. You know that scripture in the New Testament about one person plants and another person waters? Well, we didn't do any of the planting. I can't take any of the credit for these people being baptized, but we definitely got to water, didn't we? So that was an exciting start to our trip. I keep hitting the wrong button. We were sitting around in the house after getting cleaned up. We had to go get a shower. The rivers are really nasty there. And it was starting to get dark out, and they start saying, let's go, get in the cars, let's go. Well, I very seldom know what's going on down there, and when I listen to the Spanish, I understand enough of it that I'm usually wrong about what we're going to do. And so I've learned to just keep quiet and see what happens. I assume we're going back to the hotel in the city again. It's a dangerous area, and I was thinking, well, they want to get out of here because it's about to get dark out. But we pulled up at another house, and this is what we got into. They set up and blocked the street completely, and we had a street service out there, which they regularly do in that part of the country. Doesn't work in every area of Colombia, but it does work there. People come from all around. They hear you out there, and they come dragging their chairs and sit out there to listen. I hear a lot of people here say, well, that's because they don't have television and things. They don't know what to do with their time, so, it's entertainment for them. That's not true. They've got big screen TVs just like you do. They may live in a shack, but the government makes sure that they have cell phones and TVs and service. So, I don't know. People are just more interested in the gospel there. I think maybe they feel the need because they're so desperately poor. When we were done there, we left Montelibano and we traveled on to Pitalito, which is down in the southern part of Colombia. Colombia is about 1,000 miles from north to south, so it's not a small place. So we flew by turboprop down there. There you see a picture of the airport there with the soldiers watching us. Soldiers watch us everywhere we go. Used to make me nervous, but they told me the soldiers are on our side, so I assume that's true, and I go on. They've not bothered us yet. There's a gentleman that preaches in Pitalito. His name's Freddie Medina. Freddie has a little church that meets in his house. The house is actually rented by the church to have a place to assemble and a place for him to live. So that's all of the support he was getting when we got there. He had lost all of his support and was just about to have to give up and go to the city and get a job. So Church in Anderson was able to pick up his support also. So we're now supporting him. There's 5 states in the south of Colombia, a large area that as far as we're aware of, there are only 3 churches. Freddie has done some work teaching both by television and internet. He's had opportunities to do that in the past. And as such, he's reached a lot of people that are very remote. They're out in the jungle. They cannot make it to a town. So he has about 30 Christians now that he communicates with that never make it to worship service. I don't know exactly how you do that. Think about that when you're at home. How would you do this if you were by yourself? But anyway, he does a good job. On the next morning after we were there in their house preaching, they said, we'll pick you up at 6 in the morning. We're going to the hospital. Once again, I don't know what's going on, but we go out to the hospital, and they have in the back of this car a large thermos of hot chocolate and some pieces of bread. One of the members there has a friend that runs a bakery that sells her the bread for half price at the end of the day. And they go out as workers are going to work and just offer them a little cup of hot chocolate and a little piece of bread, and then they're going to stand there and talk to them about the Bible while they're there. They signed up 3 people for Bible studies that morning. It's an amazing thing. They try a lot of things that we don't think to try or maybe wouldn't work in our society, but that was enjoyable to see. The next day we were going to travel to another town further down south called Villa Garzón. I've been there several times. They had a young preacher and his wife working with them. The young preacher died during COVID. And they just have a difficult time down there. They've not been able to find anybody to replace him. So a man, just a common member of the church, has stepped up. He's been teaching, leading songs, leading prayers, leading communion. He does the whole thing. So I admire Oscar a lot, but they were really lonely last year when we were down there. We met with Freddie and talked to him about, could you go down there once a month? It's a 5-hour bus ride. Spend 1 week a month down there. So I've got a group together in Avon, Indiana that collects money each month and supports him for that part of his work, not his total support, so that he can travel down there. Like I said, it's a 5-hour bus ride. Halfway down, they stopped in that area on the left-hand picture and had us all get out. We stood around in a garage and waited for a while, not sure why. And then they loaded us in a pickup truck. So a bunch of people had to sit in the bed of the truck off of that bus. I was one of the lucky ones. I got a seat. Probably felt sorry for me because of my hair. And we made it down to Villa Garzon, where now one of the church members there has this little place where you see the church assembly going on. That's actually a restaurant. And at the end of their hours that they're open, they close it, take all the tables out, sweep the floor, put chairs up, and then they have worship services in that same building. So creative use of what they have available to them. That's Freddie Medina that traveled with us. As you can see, he's not a very big guy. He did not like that picture, so we took this one. Freddie's an amazing man. He actually lost his support quite a while ago. And last coffee season, he and his wife got somebody to watch their baby. And they went up into the mountains in the coffee region and worked as harvesters and saved all that money so that they could come back and stay a few more months. That's why they were still there when we got there. So hardworking, dedicated servant of the Lord. That's Sebastian. Sebastian is wheelchair bound. To my point of view, he can't talk. He makes verbal noises and his family understands him, so they can translate for him. But he does fantastic paintings you can find on the internet. I don't know how he does it. He can't control his hands to shake hands with you, but he can do oil paintings. So, amazing young man. I always look forward to seeing him. We went down to the border to another airport. This is not the one. It's a little bitty airport right down on the border of Ecuador. They call it the drug corridor. There are always soldiers along that highway with their automatic rifles. It's a very dangerous place to be, but that's where we flew to get back to Bogota. When we got there, they didn't want to let my grandson on the plane. One of the numbers had been entered incorrectly when the tickets were purchased, and so we waited for 2.5 hours not knowing where his passport was because they took it from him, and finally they came out and let him on. And we got back to Bogota. That's the Bogota airport there, which is huge and international and just like America. So said goodbye to him there. It was kind of hard to watch him leave and then go on, but we had to go on. The fellow on your left there is Santiago. Santiago is the translator. He's our bodyguard. He's our travel coordinator. He's our friend. He takes care of everything we need while we're there. That's his sibling sitting there on the back row, and that's his brother Carlos standing up. Carlos preaches there in Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa is a nice little church. Meets upstairs in that building. As you can see, it's a little different than what we're used to. And we spoke there a couple of times before we moved on. Had a really good time there. I was up speaking and doing a lesson on marriage. I've come to think about recently how there are lessons that you don't expect to bring people to the Lord. It doesn't seem like the right topic. I was preaching on marriage and how to preserve your marriage. There's a lot of marriage difficulty down there. And this young lady that you see sitting there at the table in the plaid shirt, that's Trinidad. She was there at the service. She was crying during the whole sermon. And when it was over, I noticed she was standing around talking to church members. Then I was told later that she wanted to meet with us the next day. So we went to her apartment and studied with her. She grew up in the Catholic Church. She left that because she figured out on her own that they weren't teaching what the Bible said. And she went to the Evangelical Church. And then at that point, her husband decided, I'm not having anything to do with you. I'm not interested in a Christian. and left her. And so then she figured out again that she was in the wrong place and had just not been going until a friend told her about the Church of Christ there in Santa Rosa. She showed up that night. We studied with her. We said, we're going an hour and a half away to another congregation to preach tonight. You want to go with us? So I can prove she's crazy. She got in the car with 3 strange men, and we went to church in another place. And I got this picture not long after I got back. She's been baptized. She's your sister in Christ now. So the place where we went that night is called Dos Quebradas. This congregation I've talked to you about before. They just started about 4 years ago. They have about 40 members now. Nice little group. Terrible location. So noisy there, it's really hard to worship. But they're doing a good work. That's in a mountainous area, and travel's difficult, so you take any help you can get. We left that area and went up to the Caribbean Sea, to the area of Cartagena. Cartagena is a tourist town. You can easily pay $300 or $400 a night for a hotel room there. We typically pay $15, $17, and get a decent room. Probably wouldn't take your wife on vacation in that kind of room, but I don't know what I keep doing. We were supposed to go to Turbaco. I get the names tangled sometimes in my mind. Turbaco is a little village south of that town where it's not wealthy. You leave Cartagena and you drive from shockingly rich to incredibly poor in a matter of a mile. I'm talking poor, half a dozen skids tied together with twine, maybe a piece of ragged blue tarp over the top, maybe cardboard, whatever they can get their hands on, little scraps of styrofoam, and they live on the ground in between those pallets that they make these little shacks out of. Anyway, went on from there down to this little village, which is also very poor, but as you can see, there's a really nice congregation going there. Javier preaches there. You can see myself preach. That's him and his family. That's their trademark picture right there. The daughter poses and the mom smiles, and they inspect the picture before you save it. And she tells you which ones to delete. The mom does. So. Javier is a brave soul. He does a lot of street preaching he's got one of those big amplifiers and speakers that's about this big. He goes out in the morning when people are commuting to work at the bus stops and preaches. One time he was arrested for it. They told him he had to stop doing it. The crowd attacked the policeman and told him to leave him alone. They liked listening to him. So he's still doing it. He's still bringing to the Lord people. We went out to a little village called San Jose de Chiquito. This is an interesting place. It's my first time there. If you look it up on the internet, the first line you'll read is it's a town that time forgot. And boy, is that the truth. It is so primitive there, you just can't. It's like going back into the 1800s. Dirt streets, no toilets in the houses, just pitiful place. There had been a guy that went out there to preach, had a little church going. The church actually met in that building, and then he got tired of it, got discouraged, quit, and just disappeared on him. Didn't even tell him he was leaving. But he met Javier, and they got to talking about the Lord and the church, and the guilt got to him. So he told Javier about it. Javier and his friend Ariel now go out there once a week. They teach in the public square, and have a little study group going out there, hoping to get the church going again. It's about an hour and a half out the worst dirt road you've ever seen. And if it rains, they can't go. The road becomes impassable. So we had a study there with a lady who was thinking about being baptized, but had been taught that she had to fix everything in her life before she could be baptized. And so we were really struggling with that with her. We did not change her mind that day, but by the time that study was over, it looked like this, because people walking by would start to listen, and so they'd get them a chair and they'd hand them a Bible. We had the most active Bible study in that front yard that I've ever had in South America. Every one of those people had questions about baptism. So we just had an excellent study. When we got done, the preacher said, "Yeah, you told them the same things I've been telling them." They're just being careful, I guess. I don't know. But it was a really good day. He also preaches in a little place called Arjona. Last year when I was there, they were trying to talk us into rounding up money so they could get a building. They had this terrible house. It was falling down around them, and they couldn't afford the rent on it anymore. I told them, if you had a baby that needed heart surgery, I could raise money like that. If you were asking for a preacher, it'd be a little more work, but I could still raise money for that. But money to rent a building in this condition, I don't see that happening. You don't have enough people here that you even need a building. Just meet in one of your homes. They didn't listen to me. They found a building that was cheaper and nicer. Somehow they've afforded it. I don't know how. Their group has grown a little bit, and that is an open sewer right outside the door of that place where they worship. We had new instructions this year for our travel. Our travel guide said, look, I'm tired of standing in line waiting to pick up luggage. I travel with only a book bag, and you can too. So we went down there this time with only a book bag on our backs, and that was a challenge to get my packing down to that level, but it can be done, and we did it. We left there and went on to Sahagún. Sahagún I've been to every time that I've been to South America. It's one of my favorite places. Brother Artenio sitting there at the table, you may remember that. He passed away during COVID, not of COVID, possibly from the shot. He died right after getting the shot. I don't know. The other couple that you see the picture of there is a couple that was very active in helping and leading in this congregation. They've both been murdered by the guerrillas. They had a little successful hardware store, and they demanded money of him, and he wouldn't pay. So they killed him, and then a few weeks later they killed her. They took their 5 children into hiding. Makes it both wonderful to go there and sad at the same time. Right after we arrived, we went to this place. I was out in the country, hour and a half away from there, and they have a Bible study that goes on every week there. There's not a church there, but people assemble to study the Bible with them. They baptized some people out of there. That congregation back in Sahagún that I told you lost the 3 members, this is the guy that preaches there now. He was there before, wanted to preach. They weren't much interested in him. He's sort of an odd fellow. That's the preacher's widow sitting there in the chair. Last year they were just really discouraged. Those of you that have spoken before know you can read an audience when you're up here speaking. Like I can tell right now, you all are really paying good attention, and I appreciate that. But it was like preaching to the walking dead when I was there last year. They were discouraged. They'd lost all their leaders. The place was just falling apart. And so we talked to them about, get busy, you can do something. You can't do what he did, but you can do something. Every one of you. And they did, and one of their members stepped up to preach and started preaching false doctrine. And so the women of the congregation, being the stronger Bible students, confronted him and said, show us in our Bibles. And they did that over and over, week after week. He finally got angry and left. Took some people with him, group's about half what it used to be. But they are happy and working again. Got this little guy preaching for them, and things are on a roll. That was just some more pictures of that area. That's the home where the people live. His son has a carpenter shop. That's his table saw that he built and some furniture that he's building for people. Spectacular work done out there in the... This young lady became my newest fan. She follows me around when I'm there. I don't even know her name, I'm ashamed to tell you, but everywhere we went, she wanted to go with us. Had that gorgeous smile going all the time. Always had a hug for me when I would show up. We went back to Sahagún and preached there on Saturday night and Sunday morning, and just really enjoyed our time there. After church was over on Sunday in Sahagún, we went to another place, again an hour or 2 away on a dirt road. Had to walk then quite a ways, probably a mile or so, to get to a farm. That's the home where the people live out there. And on that property they have this edifice that they worship in. There's a church that meets out there every Sunday. There were 30-some people, I would say, there. Another really fine group of people. Then we returned to Sahagún, and this young gal was the last one to tell me goodbye. You know, When you take pictures of a place, you can be prejudicial in the way you do it. You've experienced that probably if you travel. We used to camp a lot, and I would look at pictures of campgrounds and say, that's a gorgeous place, let's go there. And you get there, and it doesn't look anything like the pictures. There's one spot where you can stand and take this beautiful picture, and it prejudices the people that see it. I've realized I've done that a lot in my travels down there. I can take pictures of poverty, which I've kind of stopped doing because I'm so embarrassed by it now. I can take pictures of beauty and make it look like it's a gorgeous place. There are just a lot of things that maybe I have prejudiced people with. But I've become more aware of criminal activity, probably because of some of the things I've told you. Brother Carl McMurray used to travel. I used to travel with him, I should say. I miss him. He's a huge man, studied martial arts, and I wasn't afraid anywhere where we went. Now, I know that was dumb, but still, I felt that way. Political change there. They've elected a communist president. They've got terrible things going on right now. The work of Satan that I see around us, the murder of Eduardo and Jolie. My grandson traveling with me has made me more afraid. I guess you're probably aware that if I lose him down there, I might as well not come home. That weighs on my mind like you wouldn't believe when I'm there. The translator that travels with us, the drug culture has tried to recruit him because of his popularity. When we were going into Montalibano this year, we were following one of these trucks. These trucks are everywhere. Those are the government official trucks. There was a white pennant flying from a mast on that truck, and I hadn't even noticed it. Santiago pointed it out. He said in this area, the guerrillas are trying to intimidate the people. And so the method they're using is they occasionally pop out of the jungle along the highway with their automatic rifles. They spot one of these government trucks, they kill everybody in it, and they disappear. And then, at one of the places that I showed you, I won't tell you which one, as we were leaving, Santiago said, look up there on the hill. I looked, there's a little girl up there in a black dress. He said, that's one of the daughters of the couple that was murdered. This is where she's hiding. Her other 4 siblings are hiding in other places. All these things add to my thoughts of fear. And then I come home, and I talk to the people in Anderson about going to go again. This is where we're going. And they always say, we don't think you ought to go. Not everybody, but some of them. And when they can't talk me out of it, they say, well, be safe. I'm learning to not like that phrase. It isn't safe. It isn't safe there, and it's not safe here. It's not safe to be a Christian. They hated the Lord, and they're going to hate us. But that's become a mantra in the United States, this safety at any cost. And it's really become offensive to me. Because of that idea, we've raised kids that can't look anybody in the eye and talk to them because we've taught them stranger danger, right? I'm not saying that's not necessary. But I don't feel like it's necessary when you come to church, and we need to work on this. I mean, how are our kids going to affect the world for the Lord if they can't even look a person in the face and say something reasonable? There are a lot of young people today who decided they're not going to marry because their parents got divorced, and it was ugly and uncomfortable for them, and so they're just never going to marry. It's that safety at any cost idea. Don't want to have children because it's not a safe world. What would you say if I said, or if the Lord said to you, why are you so afraid? He said that in the Bible. Let me read to you a scripture from the book of Mark, chapter 4, beginning in verse 35. Mark chapter 4, verse 35. On that day when evening had come, he said to them, let us go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were there with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat so that the boat was filling already. But he was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And he awoke, and he rebuked the wind and the sea. Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? Why are you so afraid? Think about those guys in that boat. They were in that trouble because they were doing what he said. They were out with him doing his work, and that's why they ended up in a mess. Sometimes when we do the Lord's work, we're going to end up in a mess that's uncomfortable and we don't know what to do with it. They were in real danger. These were guys that were fishermen. They were used to being out on the sea, but the boat was about to sink. The water was coming in and they were scared. It's not going to be imaginary. There's going to be real danger in your life. And maybe because you're serving the Lord. And Jesus is asleep. You ever pray to God and you don't get answers? And you start to wonder, is he hearing my prayers? I don't know that I've ever actually thought maybe he's asleep, but it feels that way, doesn't it? It just feels like he's not answering. But you know they had a problem. They forgot what the Lord said. When he gave them their instructions, he said, Let us go to the other side. What's that tell you? They're all going to get there, right? You know, he said the same thing to us. He said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And we'll be there together. So whatever they do to me, whatever they do to my grandson, if we stick with what is available for us to do to serve him, he'll reward us. And we'll be with him in heaven. Jesus rebuked the sea, rebuked the wind, and it was all calm. Do you think about that kind of power? You've been out in a raging storm. Can you imagine standing next to somebody and they say, Stop it! And it's gone. Birds are singing, the sun's shining. The apostles saw amazing things. We forget about the power that he has to fix our problems, don't we? Or maybe not to fix our problems, but to give us the strength to carry on and to go anyway. And after that happened, he said to them, Why are you so afraid? Almost seems like a ridiculous question, doesn't it? Why am I afraid? Are you blind? But after the miracle, they were filled with fear again. That's odd, isn't it? They were not afraid of the storm anymore. They were not afraid of drowning anymore. They were afraid of the fact that they're standing face to face with somebody that can tell a storm to stop. And I think that's where we have a problem. I think we forget who Jesus is. We get pretty comfortable with everyday Jesus, don't we? I mean, we come here on a typical Sunday, we sit here together, we sing and pray. It's all comfortable, you're all dressed up, you're all good looking today, everybody's smiling. And that's everyday Jesus. We go about our daily life, we earn a living, we say our prayers, and it's all good. But we forget that he's not like us. He has power over our lives and over our eternity that we can't imagine. We need to stop living in fear. I never thought I would do what I do. I've never been a preacher. I'm an electrician. I got the opportunity to teach Bible class, so I taught Bible class. And that's where I learned. And I learned to talk to people and to not be afraid. And then I got an invitation to go somewhere. You don't know where the Lord's going to ask you to go. But he has a place for you to work And we need to not be afraid. Living in fear is not just sinful. It's a lousy way to live. I've watched friends who are scared of life. They don't think I should travel on a motorcycle because motorcycles are dangerous. They don't like that I go backpacking in the Smokies because there are bears. And they miss out on some of the most beautiful things I've done in my life because they're afraid. You don't need a place to give you hot chocolate and a teddy bear when somebody hurts your feelings. That's a real example from some of the universities out east. They're doing that. They have a room filled with teddy bears and they serve hot chocolate if you've been insulted by somebody. You don't need counseling if somebody disagrees with you. We need to talk to people that disagree with us. Those are the ones we need to reach. The New Testament says that the Lord provided us armor. What's that tell you you're going to be? You don't wear armor to be an electrician. You wear armor to be a warrior. So, I don't know what the Lord's presenting to you. I don't know what opportunity is in your view of the world today. But I know this, if you are faithful to Him, He has an opportunity to you, and you will do things serving the Lord that you never thought you could do. You didn't plan on doing them, you didn't prepare to do them, you just follow the Lord, and He can do things with you that will amaze you. Thank you so much for your kind attention.